Jeff, we're going to go right from baseball over to some basketball talk.
Right from one team that has defensive problems to another team that might have defensive problems.
Keith Pompey. Jeff is excited because Orlando apparently has so many players not playing tonight that a Michigan man may see the court.
Who?
How are you doing this evening, Keith?
I'm all right. I don't think he'll see the court tonight, though.
Get out. Why? Why are you suiting up? Are you going to play? How many? Tell us to start off. They're playing the Orlando Magic that I believe have the second worst record in the East. How many guys are they actually going to have suited up today?
Well, let's say, so right now they have 17 guys on the rosters. So 7 of them are already out. And then another one could be out. So what's that, 9? So they'll probably have 9 guys, maybe. Maybe.
Well, then Brizdeikis has to play.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe actually... they want to lose this game. So if he comes in, he may hit a couple shots, and then they won't get the seed that they're supposed to get.
Okay, so Orlando wants to lose this game because they want a higher draft pick. The Sixers want to win this game because they want to wrap up the number 1 seed. Why does my stomach not say that this is going to go as easy as planned?
Because you've been watching the last couple games.
You're a Sixers fan, that's why.
What happened last night? Explain. They had almost their full roster last night.
What happened last night? They got spanked. I believe, as Keith's column says, they were manhandled last night. Keith, what happened?
What happened is, I hate to say it, the Sixers have, maybe their schedule has basically hindered them a little bit. And what I mean by that is they're going and playing man teams. And this was the first time since they played the Milwaukee Bucks, 10 games ago, that they played a team that was had a somewhat healthy roster. And it was a quality team. They just couldn't match that intensity. And they couldn't match the physicality either. I mean, this team was getting up in guys' face. They were knocking them around. The Sixers were trying to fight back a little bit, but then they would get fouls called on them, and they would get a little frustrated. But it was kind of like the Jimmy Butler effect. He's a gritty guy, and he goes to a team, and they were gritty, and the Sixers just seemed like they couldn't have matched that.
Okay, well then you just made my day worse, because now I'm sitting there going, exactly when are they going to flip the switch, and can they flip the switch to play against competition? Because we've been talking all year about how the fact that the Sixers don't seem to be playing against the best players from every team. You've just said that this is the last game in the last 10 or so where they've had a full complement of opponent. Now they're going to play the second to worst team in the Eastern Conference for the last 2 games of the season. Can they just turn it on come playoff time?
I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure teams do pick up the tempo. But the funny thing is, this was reminiscent of the 2018 year when they went on and they won all those games, and they were playing, some 500, but they weren't playing any dominant teams. And it will be good enough for them to get out of the first round. But if they don't turn it on, they could have another second-round exit. And I know a lot of people are saying, what are you talking about? They're going to get the first seed. It's going to be easier.
Yeah, play Jimmy Butler and the Heat in that second round.
Exactly. I mean, that's the type of team that they're going to go up against. And then not only that, Atlanta's going to be motivated. They were injured when they played the Sixers, and the Sixers kind of took them behind a woodshed twice. So, the Sixers, they do need to step up. They do need to play better. I feel like, guys were too concerned with individual accolades and the season awards. And, they just looked bad yesterday. It was a really disappointing loss.
Well, and the thing that concerns me, look, you end up with a Heat matchup, and look, this could just be something recent, but they've struggled against zone defenses. They know how to attack a zone. They have the shooters to bust it. There's no reason they should have struggled. But the Pelicans, in particular, and then the Heat the other night have made them look silly. What concerns do you have about the Sixers offense in the half court going into the playoffs where everything gets tighter?
Well, you need a point guard who can shoot the ball. I mean, you need people like that. The primary ball handler has to be able to shoot. Joel has to have confidence in these guys, you know what I mean, so he can pass it out. But, it's funny. Like a year ago, Miami was the first team that used the zone against them. And I'm not Doc Rivers. Brett Brown was getting criticized because, they couldn't bust the zone. And then the next game they played, the Dallas Mavericks used the zone and crushed them. And now Miami's coming right back at it. And it just seems like I think that when you have a ball handler, a guy who everyone knows that he's not going to be able to shoot the ball, or he's not going to shoot the ball, like it makes it harder to guard against, harder to score against, because he has the ball and it's kind of like, 4-on-5 a little bit. You know what I mean? So I think that's the major problem. But then again, Danny Green, he was 3 for 5 against it, but at that point they were, getting blown out, so to speak. But yeah, I think the fact that you have a point guard who doesn't shoot the ball, that's the biggest concern.
I saw another troubling thing last night, which was Joel Embiid kept getting pushed out of the key. And it seemed to create, is that something that other teams see, or was that just a one game? Joel didn't really care. Go ahead, push me out of the, this isn't the game I'm really worried about. Or is this something that teams could pick up on and just start shoving him out of the kick? Because he took a 3-pointer from about 8 feet beyond the line at one point too.
It's one of those things where, they're saying that, like last night, Doc said he wasn't really sick. I mean, he said he was sick, but that didn't hinder him. So I would be concerned it's not going to happen tonight, and it probably won't happen if he plays on Sunday, just because of the level of competition. But it's like this is kind of like a one-off. They said he was a little under the weather, so I wouldn't hit that panic button just yet. You know what I mean? But if I saw it a couple more times, then yeah, it couldn't become a little concerning. I mean, the thing is, it just like, he just has to stay down there. He has to be more physical, more aggressive. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much that altercation kind of impacted him a little bit. Maybe he could have lost his focus. They were upset with the refs, and he's probably thinking like, man, I hopped on this private jet to come down here for this, and this is what we're doing. You know what I mean? So, it could have been a lot of things, but he's such a big, strong guy that I wouldn't be concerned with it just yet. Now, if it was something that continued, of course.
By the way, how many times have you actually uttered the phrase yourself, I've hopped on this private jet for this?
Man, I wish I wish I can utter it at least twice. You know what I mean? At least.
We'll work
but
on
then,
that,
I'll probably be a little nervous. So I'm like, hey, man, let me to the pilot. Let me see your license. What did you do? How many flights have you flown? You know what I mean? But
Jeff's got connections. He'll get right on that for you.
Oh, yeah. You don't want my connection.
So despite everything that we've said, if you look at some of the other teams going into the playoffs, there's a tweet that potentially Harden, Durant, and Kyrie may get on the court together before the end of the season for their last game. The Celtics are now without Jaylen Brown. The Heat are going to be without Victor Oladipo. Are the Sixers, assuming they wrap up number one, the clear favorites here? What's your sense of the team? Despite all the negative things that we've talked about so far, it seems that every other team in the East has flaws too.
Nah, they're not the clear favorite. It's weird because when you look at how they're playing, I mean, yesterday should have shown people that they weren't. And I know people saying, they were being very, very vanilla. And I'm like, well, so was Miami. They were just being gritty with it, right? But, no, they're not. I mean, you look at a team like Milwaukee, and you see how Milwaukee's playing. You look at Brooklyn. I mean, I know Brooklyn hasn't played a lot together with their big three, but Kevin Durant is a bucket. and I don't see anyone on the Sixers who can stop Kevin Durant. I'm sorry, I just don't. And then when you have James Harden and Kyrie, I mean, we're talking, like, are you going to be able to put people on all of them? I mean, we talked about this last week. I just don't see the Sixers being better than that team. And I don't see the Sixers being better than Milwaukee. The thing about Milwaukee is there's certain teams and certain that other teams get up for. And Giannis gets up for playing against the Sixers. He does. Like, there was one time when he came in here lackadaisical, and that was Christmas of last year, not last season. And he came in there and they got crushed. And after that, it just seems like they were opening up a can on the Sixers. You know what I mean? So I don't see the 76ers as, in my eyes, I don't see them as the overwhelming front runners. See, this is funny. Like, when you talk to people about the Sixers, and this isn't a knock, but it's the truth. Everyone says, wow, they got to get that number one seed. And you say, okay, why? Oh, because then they get to avoid Brooklyn or Milwaukee in the second round. They don't have to play them into the finals. And then they're like, well, yeah, I hope Miami slides to number 6. And I'm like, why? Because then the Sixers won't have to play them in the second round. So when people start saying, I hope, to me, that's a little alarming. Like, that's, to me, you're saying, like, you don't think that this team is good enough. You're just hoping that they get an easy path to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. So when you start saying that, I don't even think the people who say that believe that they're the overwhelming or they're the favorites to come out of the East, because they're wishing there's going to be some luck that goes with it,
I'm more interested from the standpoint of them having home court and the attendance increasing and how that will impact the way this team plays in the playoffs. I'm not
they're not playing their fans, they're playing the other teams.
I know, but when they play in front of their fans, they seem to be a different team. We have that with Philly sports teams here, where they are different teams at home and on the road. So I'm just wondering,
not buying it.
How excited is the team to have the fans and the numbers increasing coming back for these games, because they're going to need it?
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of a little bit on the fence with that one. Like, I'm a little bit like Jeff, and I'm a little bit with you. I hear what you're saying, but it's kind of sort of, the fans are going to feed off of energy. What's his name? Joel is going to get pumped up. He's going to get excited. Ben's going to dunk. He's going to roar at the crowd. But you remember, Toronto did win a couple games here, right? I mean, they won. Well, they won one pivotal one. Boston won a pivotal one here. And I know that they have the home court advantage and all that stuff. But, to me, they have to play a whole lot better than what they did last night. I mean, I felt like they didn't match the team's physicality. They couldn't solve the zone. And I don't care where you are. If you can't solve a zone, like if you can't make shots, the crowd isn't going to help you. Now, it will be great if you are making shots here because the crowd's going to love you. But if you're not making shots, then the crowd is going to let you know you're not making shots. So, you know what I mean? So you might want to be on the road. Now, again, this is a great home court advantage, but I think that, when it gets to that level, the Sixers are just going to have to produce, and I don't care where they are, at home or the road. They need to produce.
Look, it's a great place to go see a game. It's a lot of fun when you have a full arena of loud Philadelphia fans. Joel Embiid, like you said, is going to sit there. His hands are going to be up. He's going to be playing off just like Allen Iverson used to do. He likes to play off the fans and stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm still worried, one, about the offense, the way we talked about, but I'm also worried about the defense. I'm not buying that this is such a great defensive team. And to me, there's another problem we haven't talked about yet. But the last thing I want to ask you is, are we going to have Matisse back? Because if we don't, I think there's a major problem with the defense.
Yeah, I mean, Matisse is coming back. Matisse is questionable for today. The thing about when you have a bruised hand, and that's something that, Matisse gets a lot of touches, he gets a lot of deflections, things where you don't think they should be able to. I mean, they shouldn't have a hard time beating Orlando, especially when they have 7 rotation players out, right? So they don't really need Matisse for that. So I think it's one of those things that you have to just make sure his cardio stays up and then have some hard practices next week just to make sure he gets ready. But, I think that he'll be fine for the playoffs. I just think it's just, right now a little bit caution, don't rush anything back. Just make sure he's okay. But, yeah, you're right. They're going to need Matisse. And I agree with you. Like, their numbers are kind of skewed in a way because, everybody's hyping up the numbers, and, yeah, they're second in the league in this category and fifth in the league and another one. But when you factor in, they've been playing the walking wounded lately. Teams with like 5, 6 guys injured, struggling teams. And, of course, your defensive numbers are going to be great. So, it's kind of tough. I'm like more on the line of what did you do against Milwaukee? What did you do against Miami? What did you do against Phoenix? And even and you got to consider, like, they started struggling in the second half, couldn't make any stops against Indiana, too, when the clutch came. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%. I do think Matisse is coming back. I expect him to come back, and, like, that defensive numbers are a little misleading to me.
Keith, you will help us get through this time in the playoffs. Follow at Pompey on Sixers. Read him in the Inquirer. Listen on podcast Locked On Sixers. Keith, always appreciate the time.
Thanks for helping me, man. That dude from Michigan still won't play.
I love the shots fired. Take it easy, Keith.
All right, bye.